The director and actor Kenneth Branagh is familiar to the audience as a big fan of Shakespeare's work, but his second-grade love is Agatha Christie detectives. And this love is active. Branagh decided to create nothing less but a whole movie universe based on the novels of the writer. In an interview with the Associated Press, he said, "There are a lot of opportunities here, right? Christie's legacy includes 66 books, stories, plays, where different characters often intersect, so she herself would certainly like such an idea." And now the creative path of Branagh was replenished with another adaptation of Agatha Christie, Death on the Nile. The heiress of multi-million-dollar fortune Lynette married her best friend Lachlan's fiancé. The newlyweds went on a luxurious cruise on the Carnac steamer on the Nile, and Jacqueline decided to spoil the mood of the newlyweds with her presence. There were many other detractors of Lynette on board, but she managed to recruit famous detective Hercule Poirot, who would be on cruise on the ship as bodyguard. And one unlucky morning, Lynette was found dead. All passengers have a motive, but later, one by one, they also begin to die. Death on the Nile could have seen the light of day 2 years ago, but plans were thwarted first by a pandemic and then by a scandal. Armie Hammer, who played one of the roles in the film, was accused of violence. It was expected that Disney would even replace him with another actor, but in the end, reshoots were abandoned. The cast may not be sublime, but Murder on the Orient Express made it clear that every artist should be a star. However, there are enough bright names in the poster. The social lead of the film was performed by the star Wonder Woman Gal Gadot. And Kenneth Branagh again reincarnated as a Belgian detective himself. As with Murder on the Orient Express, he also took over as a director. 5 years ago, the film, which in addition to Johnny Depp starred Penelope Cruz and Michelle Pfeiffer, became a hit. But qualitatively, Death on the Nile surpasses it, American critics say. As Variety notes, the intrigue in it was more intense, and Kenneth Branagh himself has become even more deeply accustomed to the image of the ironic Poirot. It is logical here that the VAT is on the Gal Gadot and her entourage. The director is not trying to bring in some new notes, rewrite the plot, or move the scene. If you know how it ends, perhaps the tape is really not interesting to watch. But even for attentive viewers, even for those who have not read the book, the end will not be so intriguing, although they twisted it as they could. If we touch on the theme of the first film, Murder on the Orient Express, I want to note that I was a little disappointed. And it's not about the quality of the film, but the fact that the viewer was lured to the cinema by all means. Lured by the participation of Johnny Depp. This was before the scandal. I know that the attitude towards him is absolutely unfair. On this channel, we love and respect Johnny. And in the end in the film, his role was almost episodic. He appeared on the screen for a couple of minutes and that's it. There was literally one line. I was upset and the impression of the film then blurred. The success of Death on the Nile, critics write, will also determine whether Kenneth Branagh's passion for Agatha Christie's book will translate into a full-fledged film franchise. The director himself confirmed such plans in 2017. And the next film adaptation could be based on the novel The Alphabet Murders. Saying briefly, I like this movie. Detectives are now gaining popularity again, and it was predictable. Despite the wild popularity of the once Sherlock performed by Benedict Cumberbatch, I predict a new round of detective popularity in the next few years. In general, this genre has not lost popularity for centuries, and Agatha Christie with her Hercule Poirot made an incredible contribution to the development of the genre. What about the movie itself? The director and atmosphere make you feel completely immersed in story. Ancient Egypt, although there is not so much of it in frame, a piece of legend and drama again. Lots of graphics, and some still exposes itself. Chroma key and artificial light sometimes kicks the viewer out of the abyss of what is happening. I tried to ignore this feeling, but in vain. However, acting directly on the water no longer causes dissonance. Everything looks natural, expansive, and rich. Acting is top-notch. Naturally, there was no doubt about this because the cast is a mixture of famous and talented actors who cope with their task with bang. Of course, the famous detective played by Kenneth Branagh takes the main role and the center of the story. To be honest, I was not very interested in watching this movie. More precisely, not exactly watching because the visual part was good, but unraveled. There was no interest in it, as in a detective story. Yes, of course, the works of Agatha Christie are very famous, and all the plot moves have been used more than once. Most likely, that what caused such an effect. The killer gave themselves away almost immediately, even if you do not take into account the moment of murder itself. and even earlier. But first, let's talk about the movie as a whole. Do you know what I noticed? It seemed to me odd, but it looks like Gal Gadot is stuck in the image of Diana from Wonder Woman 1984, suffering and with the same facial expression. Sadly, she showed great promise. It is difficult, of course, to play many roles and be different everywhere. Not everyone can be Emma Thompson. And for the other characters, Armie Hammer is not very good. He actually gets a C for the acting. Perhaps it looks like this on the background of the great Kenneth Branagh. I prefer to leave the right to make mistakes to people. But in the end, there is a contrast. Emma Mackey performed well. She clearly has potential and talent. We wish her more success and interesting roles for development. Tom Bateman embodied on the screen an excellent companion and friend of Poirot. He's like a spectator who follows the detective and marvels at the latter's success. The cast turned out to be interesting, diverse, and incredibly talented. In the film Death on Nile, the artificiality remains in place, but Poirot himself underwent some positive metamorphosis. This line with the mustache and the lover added another dimension to him and finally made him a human. Poirot has a heart, and it turned out to be broken. The mustache became not only an eccentric attribute of the Belgian, but a screen behind which the great detective hid himself from emotions, an artifact associated with a loved one that Poirot never let go. Branagh filmed an episode from the First World War to show how badly Poirot was hurt by the incident on the Carnac ship. It is important that this entire set of characters suffers from love, hidden, unrequired, not approved. One of these nods of passion is drawn into the murder, all displayed on Poirot's emotional state and pierce his armor, which, in turn, was reflected in the final scene of exposing the killers. It is not shameful in the film, but fury, because the detective exposes not only criminals, he simultaneously understands a lot about himself. Picture. There are nuances here. I like the atmosphere. Without a good visual range and pleasant music, it would not have been possible to create it. The authors were able to bring the film the feeling of reading a book. Smooth flow of narrative, light blur, which also has a functional role. Interruptions to the environment. However, movements, inconsistencies, and minor problems interfered with my viewing, such as the chroma key, which was visible for a kilometer, and in the cinema it seemed to be shouting in my face, "Look, I'm here, and they couldn't cover me properly." I would like to pay special attention to the costumes. The Spanish artist Francisco Paco Delgado Lopez was responsible for the costumes in the picture. In Death on the Nile, Paco Delgado's talents seem to be fully revealed. The costumes here not only indicate temptation or danger, but even gives clues where or rather what to look for the killer. The main action of the picture develops in the late 1930s. In the short era of pre-war, new elegance manifested in everything from fabrics and styles to accessories. London, 1937. Following the camera, the viewer finds himself in the Jaws bar. In the corner of the table, a grown-up Hercule Poirot in black suit, who has let go of the famous mustache, is resting. Entering the stage is the singer Salome Malterborn. In Agatha Christie's novel, the novelist known as a terrible woman in turban. In this film, the heroine, on the contrary, does not at all give the impression of being terrible. A dress made of dark gold-colored brocade instead of a turban, and an unusual headdress made of the same fabric. Poirot is still a pedant and a big dandy, very attentive to details. In the frame, he changes 5 costumes, each suit a certain mood and circumstances. In London, he invariably wears black, but in Egypt he lets himself go. In the course are white and light gray and dark blue. The obligatory trio is always complemented by hat and a cane. Poirot is also a fan of ties with complex geometric, even hypnotic prints they're impossible to tear yourself away from. He anxiously arranged his cute collection of socks by color and by pair, sitting in the cabin. And the detective in the mustache and both sleep mask is gaining strength. Today it will be called custom. But of course, Lynette attracts all the attention. As Delgado admits, the wedding dress of this episode is his favorite costume in the entire film. Light chiffon of pink peach color with a flying drapery on the shoulders, a large embroidery in the form of white cranes. Who does not dream of this? The icing on the cake is a necklace around the bride's neck. This is a Tiffany Victoria jewelry. 128.54 carat Tiffany yellow diamond, one of the most beautiful stones in the world. When we watch the film as laymen, we don't even think about how much work has been invested in every grain, in every second what is happening. I was blown away by the costume design, which is why I included it in this story about the film. Special attention was paid to ship Karnak. Kenneth Branagh personally oversaw how the scenery was created. Everything had to be realistic, every room, every corner. The director immediately imagined what the ship should look like. He was supposed to have a menacing look and a shark-like shape. The interior is thought out to the smallest detail, luxurious and chic. Karnak is a floating palace, majestic and merciless. To sum up, the film turned out to be bright and rich. If for some reason you haven't seen it yet, it's worth watching. Do not expect something supernatural or unusual intrigue, but because of the visual range, the feeling of gloss and luxury, it's definitely worth watching. Evaluating it on 10-point scale is pointless, but I'm not sure this movie has the potential to become a classic. The first film in the series was forgotten very soon, and now very few people talk about the second one. Watching the good movies, which become an intrigue.